Hi, everybody. We're going to get started. I just want to take care of a couple of things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ross. And I don't know if you all know Ross, but he's awesome, and he's going to be talking about the basics of OSJA, what we're about, and why you would want to become a member and become a part of this. So, what I wanted to tell you was a couple things that people had told me they would like me to make everybody aware of. It's outside of OSJA, but it's, like-minded groups. So something that you might want to get involved in or might not, entirely up to you. But Kim Wilhelm made me aware of this one, so I'm just going to read what the text she wrote me. She said, let's see, let me start, not the whole thing maybe. She's invited a couple people into her home, and they've been a blessing to her. They're both amazing mentors, and they eat healthier eating habits and foods to avoid inflammation. And she said detoxing is an awesome topic for them. And she said they're all going to be at the Bollinger Homestead in Sunbury on June 17th from 1 to 11:30. And she says, she'd like to bring like-minded folks together to learn and grow. And start where you are, says Vicki Bollinger. She says, let me know if anybody's interested. And she said, we'd just like to cross-pollinate information for people, like-minded people. So that was one of them. And then the other one was about election integrity. Aaron Massera, is involved with a group who's working with election integrity. So let's see what she wrote. She said, here is the info for tonight. You should decide, should you decide to announce it. OEIN is hoping to make this training open to other counties besides just Licking. I'll bring a sign-up sheet to the next meeting. She says this is just a save the date. So it's out there a little bit, announcement for everyone. So OEIN is Ohio Election Integrity Task Force Network. They are working hard, but are hitting many obstacles. They will need as many poll observers as possible for August election. What poll observer training session? July 6th, 5:30 to 7 p.m., Newark Library. So I don't know if this invite is really more for people in that county, but they are trying to get others involved. So it's just something, if you're interested, we'll look into it for you. And then she says it's time to get as many Republicans in good standing that we can for the August election. And it's a great chance for first-timers to get their feet wet and get ready for November. Okay, so if anybody's interested in that, let me know. If anybody would like to receive the text message reminders about the meetings, the monthly meetings, let me know and I'll put you on the list. We're going to have our next meeting on July 6th. I'm so sorry. It's a Thursday, July 6th at 7 p.m. right here. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and, let me, Stuart, would you please talk about what you've got going, and then I'll.
Okay, the paper, the news, but what I do is go through business and people's bills and try to save them $20 on like 5 areas and turn that into savings. But AEP is going to jack everybody's electric bills by 30%, whether you're business or normal person. So, and then in July, they're going to do it a second time. So we have the ability to lock those rates for 24 months down here at 7.5 cents before they go to 13 is what they're, it's in the paper. I have the article on the thing she texted out today. So if you'd like, we just schedule a Zoom. You just have your electric and gas bill and Zoom with me, and I'll lock it in for 2 years. I did a Jets Pizza. They had 3 ovens. That was $5,000 a month, $5,000. The store's $2,000 a month for electricity. So they're paying 17. 30% would be 21,000 a month. An extra $5,000 times 12 months was 60 grand a year, and we lock it and save them 60 grand for 2 years. So it was a $120,000 situation. For your house, it's probably, you're paying 150 as the average bill. It's going to go to 200. So $50 times 12, what's that? 600? Yeah. So you're going to save $1,200 over 2 years. So it's a free tank of gas every month, maybe 2. Yep.
Thank you, Stuart.
Ross.
But I hand it over to Ross.
All right, thank you, Stuart. We can get our.
How do we get a hold of you, Stuart?
It's on that sitter thing.
And if you're not on that,
You
we'll.
have to
just see
lower
me
the
and I'll
legs,
text you directly.
right? We have to,
Why?
because,
You wanna be on
is that
I'll
better?
put you on there.
Yes, no?
I want to get both of us in, and we're not going to both be standing at the podium.
How's that?
All right, because people are gonna hear us talking and not gonna see both of us. Okay.
So
Okay, go ahead.
we are good.
What do you think?
It's 7:15, everybody. How are you all doing today? Today is Thursday. It is May 25th, 2023. We're all gathered here, and as we gather in His name, we're going to open up in His name. Stu, can you open us up?
Father God, thank you that we could be here together as citizens of heaven first, citizens of Ohio second, citizens of the U.S. government third. And Lord, we just bless you. We bless Jerusalem. We bless everyone in this room. Speak fire around us in the spirit, that nothing that we say will be taken out of context or heard by any other convicting spirits that want to use this out of tune. So Lord, we bless you, and we just ask for clarity as we seek to learn what you're teaching so that we can apply it in our lives. Amen.
Amen. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you so much. So we're getting in the habit of running a meeting. And today we're gonna do a meeting as we've done the last couple of visits here. But this meeting's gonna focus on new members, what we're all about. Real quick, I just wanna say, this meeting's private, bearing false witness, posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden, shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. If you're an agent or a member of any public agency or law enforcement agency of the federal, state, county, city, township levels, let us know now. Again, it's no problem, we just want you to identify yourself. I'm gonna say it a second time here. This meeting's private, bearing false witness, posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. If anybody here is a member or agent of a law enforcement agency or public agency, please let us know, whether it's federal, state, local, county, township, and it just for a third time, because it's really important. This meeting's private, bearing false witness, posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. And if you are a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies, please let us know. Wonderful, wasn't that easy?
And then we wait and give you a chance to respond. As bailiff, that's my job.
Wasn't that easy?
So no response three
Okay.
times to the Bivens.
So what we'd like to do right now is a roll call.
Point of order.
Thank you.
So we're gonna,
So the bailiff is gonna do the roll call.
okay, our bailiff from the state
Pro-tem
is
bailiff.
with us.
And we have our pro tem moderator, who is also our state moderator. I am Christina. I am from Summit County. Ross Marley?
Summit County.
Joe?
Joe, Summit County.
Tim, Fairfield County.
Carla, Fairfield County. Trina, Franklin County.
Paul, Licking County. Stuart, Franklin County.
Kathy, Fairfield County.
John, Licking County.
Tammy, Lincoln County.
Kate, Richland County.
Ryan, Franklin County.
Lisa, Franklin County.
Sandy, Licking County.
Heidi, Fairfield County.
Thank you.
All right, so I lost count. I don't know how you did, but 16, I think there's 16 of us here today.
Steven's here too. My husband, he had to step out.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's right,
And
Stephen's
he's from-
here.
And he's from which county?
Franklin County.
Thank you.
Franklin, maybe a different county in the future. So we've just done an open up prayer, we've done roll call, right? We've said the Bivens 3 times. We typically follow Robert's rules in our meetings. This is not an official meeting, we don't have a scribe.
What's Robert's Rules of Order?
In 1876, Robert's Rules of Order was developed for Parliament. It's parliamentary procedure. They figured out if they're arguing all the time, they're not gonna get anything done. If people are talking over each other, you're not gonna get everything done. So we have order. Robert's Rule says we say point of order when 2 people are talking.
And one person speaks at a time.
And so,
And we want to recognize everyone's voice. Everyone is equally important in this meeting, so that's why we take turns.
so if there's a discussion, raise your hand or say out loud, may I? You speak, and when you're done, you say, I yield. And this is how the ideas get shared. This little procedure of Robert's Rules of Order seems to be pretty bright, because it's been going on here for, almost 150 years.
Mhm.
So we're gonna follow Robert's Rules. What we usually do is we open old business, and we talk about some of the old business we talked about. And someone would say, I motion to open old business, and another person says, I second, right? We have a scribe that writes these things down. And then, we're in old business, we asked the scribe, can you read the minutes of the last meeting? And the scribe says, sure I can, and that man or woman pulls out their notes and they read the minutes.
May I?
Yes,
So, do we have an agenda for this evening, Kathy?
Yes, I put it on the text reminders.
Okay,
It was
so
on there.
we
It was
don't have-
essentially.
oh, okay,
okay, so we'll refer to you at agenda points.
you're gonna have to give me,
Well, because we don't have,
so, I'm running here without an agenda, and the agenda just basically identifies some of our old business points and some of our new business points. It goes through everything I just said up to here, and then how we close and adjourn the meeting at the end. So, yeah, her
sure.
phone's in the
My
car,
phone's in the car.
right, and she don't have,
Yes,
so,
for us.
so,
I did this on
yeah,
purpose
it's-
because he likes to have a piece of paper.
well, I don't need the piece of paper, everybody, because your text is gonna come to the phone that's live streaming right now. So I'm gonna roll with it, and there it was.
So,
Okay.
so I move to open new business.
I second it.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, well, since there really was no old business and no minutes to vote on as read, we are now in new business. The new business today is, what, who wants to be a jurist? Who wants to volunteer for jury duty, right? So I really wanna take, just a show of hands. Are you already papered? Raise your hand. Okay, we have papered members in the room. What's so different about those who raised their hands than those who didn't? Nothing really. We're all extraordinary. So the ones who raised their hand simply took an oath to be a jurist. That's it. They declared their independence and they declared their unalienable rights. So how did they do that? With papers. So what are the papers? These are these three important documents that bring you into Ohio State Jural Assembly. So as a review, Ohio State Jural Assembly is a private membership association. What's so different between private and public? Tonight I want to talk about these points because this is a big deal. To exist in the private is not very easy in 2023. It's very difficult to be out of the public. Can anybody here give me an example of what you think would be a private thing you can do?
Take a shower.
Okay, that's private. Now, let's just say you wanted to buy soap. How could you get soap for that shower in private?
Someone besides me.
Amazon? Make it.
So you could make the
Make
soap,
it.
that's private. What if you like doing a lot of things, but making soap is the one thing you don't like doing? How could you get soap? Barter,
Barter.
right? And I'm not saying, hey, we gotta all go back to bartering, but this is the kind of thinking we need to think about here. Because we go for what Felicia told us was a convenience. And we go to the store and we take out one of these bills, and with this bill, we're billed and we pay the bill with the bill.
May I? It's not really a bill though, is it?
It's a debt note,
Debt note.
right? This
It's
dollar
not-
bill.
It's not worth anything. We
Well,
just
and-
agreed to, here's this piece of paper, that's a debt that I'm gonna give
and-
you to relieve a debt?
And so it's 2023, that bar of soap, we know how small it's gonna be for a dollar bill, right? We got a bigger one at the hotel. So you need to think about how do you obtain things in private. I have an example, okay? And this is the phone over here that's got it. I walked into a store. Now this was in Cleveland, and I knew the owners would negotiate with me before I walked in. So I walked in and I said, I'm a man, I'd like to purchase this device and I'd like to have internet service. What's your name? Well, the name on this bill right here says Benjamin Franklin. Why don't you just call me Benjamin Franklin? And the guy behind the counter, he starts chuckling at me, like I'm a little bit nuts. And he's like, okay, Benji, let's set you up with a phone. So now I have a phone and I have service. And at that time, I bought maybe 6 months worth of service with Benjamin and all of his clones. And I walked out and it was a private transaction. Now, each time I need to re-up on service, I have to walk into CVS or I have to walk into Dollar General, give them $53, and I get this little card that's worth about 1/100th of a penny or something, right? But the numbers, when I key them in, I get more time. So I did this privately. Nobody knows it's me. Well, technically, technically, someone from the DNI can say, well, Ross, this phone's registered to you, and the IMEI numbers, as soon as they're closed, they register, and we could, okay, I get it. We're under a lot of scrutiny, but I'm beginning this exercise, right? Am I right?
Right.
Yeah, again, it's very difficult to be private in 2023.
Right.
We're a private membership organization, and we're telling you, be private with us. And if we can't explain what private is, how can I expect men and women who are jurists to be private? Comments?
No, you're,
I'm on a roll.
Yay!
I'm on a roll, she says.
That's good.
you did, good opener.
Good opener.
Do you
Okay.
have another example?
Uh,
What are other ways that you can be private? What are other very important transactions that we absolutely must engage in for survival? I love being able to talk to my kids and chat with you guys and all the other things that these are able to facilitate. I can live without it. There are some things that we can't live without. Food, water, housing. How can we have those transactions in private? We have a friend. I'm going to give them the example of our.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because I'm not going to give names, I don't think she would mind. So we have a friend who lives in just south of here, I think.
Judy
Anyway.
lives outside of Pickerington.
Okay, so she was recently sharing with a small group of us that she has opted into a cow share. She gave them $70 a month, I think it is, and she gets all the milk she wants, that she can process that raw milk, and when they decide to butcher that cow, she gets a quarter of it or whatever. And it was a cash she found out through another person, and she drove over and said, "Hey, handshake deal. Let's accomplish this." Because she, pardon?
And I just said one step at a time. I like it.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
one step at a time. But you're not going to take those steps unless you're aware that they need to be taken.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people that are so trapped in the world of
I'm
convenience.
glad you brought that up. Okay,
Convenience.
so let's talk about the trap, right? Because it's wicked. And when we look at the word wicked in the dictionary, or the synonym of the word wicked, there's another word. It's called licentiousness. That sounds pretty wicked too, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Here's the unfortunate part. The word license comes from licentiousness.
Wow. Really?
And
So-
that's what puts you in the public. You have a license. You have
Right.
a license to drive. You have a license to serve food. You have a license
To be a plumber or a chiropractor or a electrical worker.
Or
You
to-
need a license to work in the public. This is the licentiousness. If you don't do the requirements of the license, you don't get the convenience to work in the public. So when you deal with license, I have a driver's license. I'm not up here to be a hypocrite, right? Because I have to do that right now because my life up to this point requires I have a driver's license. And I expect everybody in the room has a requirement or a need for a license for some reason in their life. Go ahead.
So that's gonna put you under regulations.
With-
A
Right.
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
regulations,
right,
right?
Right, so here at OSJA, we don't try and figure out how they set it up. We don't try to figure out how you change that. We look at ourselves and we want to change ourselves to be private. Yeah, go ahead.
because truly the only thing that you have control over, if you're lucky, is yourself. Like everything outside this bubble, I don't have control over that. I can attempt to influence, usually by example, but really, even on a good day, I have very little control over even what's happening inside the bubble. And I think that self-awareness promotes that thought process. Go ahead, Stuart.
Man, definition of licentious, 1 and 2. Of course, the first one we're not talking about, but promiscuous or unprincipled in sexual matters. But the second one is disregarding accepted rules or conventions, especially in grammar or literary style. So it sounds like we actually want to be disregarding these public rules to be private, though.
Well, they've disregarded the rule of God. They've disregarded the common law. That they have disregarded what God gave us. We are responsible to self-regulate and moderate that over ourselves. And by their licentiousness, they are removing that right and responsibility from us.
How bold? How bold?
So here's just an offside example. A prisoner of war might need a license to be able to make their own food within that prison camp. And I did mean this to be a reflection, because if you do see yourself as a prisoner of war, this makes sense, a lot of the things we talk about. So we're saying, hey, we're on this cartoon land island here, and we're living here with licenses, and we're enslaved by the debt notes that we carry in our pockets, and we're just on this island here, we're stuck, and we talk about this other place to stand. And so we tell you, go stand there. What we gotta do first is describe what it is so you know where to go, what to do. This is what the papers help us do. So let's go back to those who didn't raise their hands earlier. I have a bunch of papers and pens tonight because I was
Just in case
told
people
last
decide.
month that there may be a member or two interested. So, yes, go ahead.
I think this would be an excellent time to bring in the point that Tim was making before the meeting. What is a Jural Assembly? Why is a Jural Assembly? What's our goal? What is our purpose? Why would you care to do this? What difference can we make?
Now, I'm gonna answer that. We're gonna do a deep dive on the papers. So, if after we're done talking, you wanna come on up here and take the Jural Covenant of Office, I'm gonna hand you your papers right now, okay? So, raise your hand if you're interested in that. Raise your hand if you want to see the papers, because you just wanna know what they're all about. Because I'm gonna hand out papers to anybody with their hands up. There's a set for you, and
Because if you're like most of us, you want to read whatever you're gonna
we're gonna
consider
review these
signing.
deep dive,
So
and we're gonna
it's
answer
important
these
to see
questions
what
that
you're
we've just posed, and if
considering.
Paul's interested, and Stewart's interested. So, I like one there or two there. Anybody?
You did.
Okay, I got two. All right. Take the
got a
separator,
smell
thank
for
you. Got one over here, okay. And
Good.
here I am grabbing
Did I
two
put you
at
up
once
front?
again, okay.
You
And
tell us if we're missing anything.
this is my favorite part of the day. Brian, when I have more of these than I need.
Did you want this one?
So keep passing these out. Again, so here, take that group, and is it Lisa? Or would you like again, just to read with us, you're welcome, if any, I didn't wash hands.
So for everyone on the
And-
live stream, we're not showing the people in the room today because we did
yeah.
not ask
Well,
them in
yeah,
advance
what?
if that was
Okay.
acceptable. So you're just listening to Ross pass out papers.
Okay, all right, so, I need your
I'll give you a
fan.
fan.
There,
Yeah, I know.
take those, you got more fans over there. So what I handed you was an instruction on the top. If they're all collated the same way, the first one is what we call the Declaration of Independence, and it's 2 pages, you just sign it on your own, no witnesses needed. The second one, this is kinda out of order, this is the Jural Covenant of Office, and this is, the oath. Others have said this oath here, you may have seen others saying this oath. All of us paper members, we said this out loud. Those who want to be sworn in tonight, will all read this out loud simultaneously.
Explain it.
Well,
Explain the
let me,
oath.
hold on, I'm gonna get into that first. And then the third document is the Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by inborn power. Now, at these meetings, I do spend a lot of time on Jural Covenant. But what is the Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by inborn power?
Anyone? Stuart?
It,
Anyone?
well,
I
It
don't
was-
know.
it was
I'm
more-
excited to
Okay.
read
it was more
Okay.
rhetorical, because the answer is, you know this phrase.
Gotcha.
endowed by our Creator. How do we put that in writing? How do we put our foot down and say, notice everybody, endowed by our Creator, these rights. You don't get to put any liens on these rights. They are unalienable. When I took my first breath, go ahead, Paul.
No, I just have one question here. Because that was the unalienable was what was in the original document.
Yes.
It was changed somewhere to inalienable, and what is the difference? To me, there's gotta be some basic difference here.
So we have had, half a dozen very lengthy discussions, arguments with people on the state calls. And I'm gonna jokingly acknowledge that my kids harass me about the semantics game and how words are really important. And if there is a difference, what is that difference? And there isn't a difference.
There really is no difference.
There is no difference.
Okay.
No, it essentially, unalienable, inalienable, they both mean you may not put a lien on my rights.
Okay. That was
Point
the
of
main
order.
thing, just
Uh,
to talk
yeah.
about. Because there's a little thing going along, you can
Right,
Google it and see all the little discussions.
Right, there is no difference. They both mean you may not put a lien on it, unless I allow you
Right.
to place that lien. So,
Yeah,
Hi,
thanks for
Vivian.
joining us. I'm Ross. What's your name?
Ron,
Ron,
Ron.
and you're with which county?
Franklin.
Franklin, all right. We got a lot of
Welcome,
folks,
thank you.
Franklin County. So, Ron, I passed out papers because there's some men and women here interested in taking a Jural covenant of office tonight. So we're gonna do an explanation. I've got an extra set. Would you like a set of papers? Okay,
No.
you can look
Okay.
on if you're interested. Let us know.
we'll explain, and if you change your mind, we have extra copies, and if there's no
So-
pressure.
So
don't want to.
I posed the question, how do you get from the public and this cartoon land we live in to a private place? You gotta know where you're going. And I said, these 3 documents help establish what that ground is. Now, I'm not gonna read these all through. I'm gonna do a Cliff's Notes, because Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by inborn power means when you took your first breath, you had your rights. And it sounds a lot like the Declaration of Independence when you go through the top. We tweaked it a little for Ohio, but we want to make this statement. We want to make this declaration, this notice. And even though this is a private membership association, you're saying it publicly. And we're going to have a copy of your wedding signature, right?
Stuart has a question.
Stuart?
May I? I've been studying canon law, and it's very important that when you are born, your birth certificate, they say if you don't reply in 7 years, we consider you dead and take over your cestate Q account. So when entering a court of law under some of these things I'm listening to, you need to say, the flesh lives, the blood flows. And then the judge runs out in dishonor, and he comes back 2 other times. Third time is the Knights of Malta only in federal court. That's when you use your sovereign citizen stuff, and people do it too early, I'm told, and that's where they screw it up. So, do you have the flesh lives, the blood flows in this?
So,
Go ahead.
so we'll cover my common law experience after this part. They all know that they've indoctrinated us to forget that saying, I'm the woman, that name, that all caps name of that corporation that you just called, I'm the woman. I am the trustee. I am here for settlement. I am the only authorizer of any settlement. So whatever you offer, put it in writing. I accept. Because I know that you're taking whatever this says plus 2 zeros out of the public trust, which is the account that was placed on me when my mother was tricked into saying that I had been lost at sea. All you have to say is, I'm the woman, I'm the man, this is me. That you don't have to go through that whole rigmarole,
Okay.
because then they can trick you again.
Good
It's a
question.
good point,
This
though.
is the core of what we're getting at here.
Common law is the core.
So there is on the bottom of Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by inborn power. I'm gonna read through this part here, and it may take 2 minutes for me to read, and it's not because I want to hear What?
It never takes you 2
It's not
minutes.
because I want to hear the sound of my own voice. I just want to let you hear the power of these words to establish where you're going when you choose to go private. What? Well, yeah. So it's rated R.
Read it all.
Oh, read it all. No,
We're posting
no,
this video
that's-
on the
for
website,
the-
please
for the-
read it
no,
all.
For the sake
I'd
of
love to
time.
hear it all, no
Yeah,
problem at all.
all right, so Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by inborn power. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. That's what this is. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all divine spirited beings are created equal, and they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A free and independent state is established when one people join together in a common unity to secure their natural rights, to secure the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, to be exercised by elected officials as surrogate power for the free and independent nation state, Ohio State. When surrogate power officials assume rights of inborn power as supreme, a free and independent state inverts into a state which usurps the unalienable rights of the people, and they become mere subjects of mandatory conformity, victims of suppression of natural rights and tyranny. Corrupted surrogate power has no inborn authority of its own. Therefore, I declare by Almighty God, in peaceable one people assembly, this covenant affirmation. Now, this was what I was going to read, but Stuart was right. I should have given you the lead up.
That was great, thank you.
Covenant affirmation goes like this: I am created equal to all men and women, with unalienable rights held by inborn power. I solemnly affirm, publish, and declare I am absolved from all political allegiance foreign to this free and independent state, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence in one people assembly. I affirm I am local to the state of Ohio, a free and independent state, lawfully settled in Summit County settlement, and in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of our liberty of our posterity and our free and independent nation, I consent to uphold and keep the peace or delegate power to the local county settlement and to Ohio, a free and independent nation, for the lawful protections, freedoms, and rights of the people in these free and independent states, in support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on divine providence, we pledge to each other the protection of happiness, prosperity, life, and liberty. By autograph under this witness protection, my declaration of unalienable rights held by inborn power is supreme, holding and reserving all unalienable rights and jury nullification intact. The declaration autographed by the settler, grantor, beneficiary, with reservation of all rights. And then on page 2, we sign this, and we have
We autograph.
we autograph. All right, there we go with words again.
Signing is a de facto
Right.
codes and statutes.
Right.
You autograph it, you are creating something original.
So the men and women here who want to be papered tonight, they're going to autograph this. We're going to give you purple ink. We voted for purple.
It could have been blue, but
We voted for
purple was the
purple.
vote.
This is written in purple. So those men and women who want to become jurists are going to sign this document in purple. The witnesses are going to sign in purple. We're going to we're going to make a copy and keep
Emboss it.
records, document, record. This is the continuity we do. This is half of this place you need to be. This declaration, there's one more thing you need to declare, because now you've said, I was born with rights. So we go to the first document, Declaration of Independence. Now this one's a little longer, and I may not go through it again to give my voice a relax here, but this is just as important as the rights, because we, just as the founding fathers of this republic did, they wrote the Declaration of Independence. They were here in their minds. And then they had the Congressional Congress, right? They met in Philadelphia. What? Continental Congress. They met in Philadelphia, right? They were delegates sent from committees of safety that were operating out of taverns in Virginia and churches in Pennsylvania, right? There were groups of people meeting here and there, and they sent delegates. When they had their meetings, they conducted those meetings just as we conduct our meetings at the Ohio State Jural Assembly. We call these meetings Committee of Safety meetings. That term came from the Magna Carta. This is an old term. This is exactly what we are doing right now. We're like-minded men and women meeting to discuss things, to understand things.
May I?
Go ahead.
I would like to briefly interject, because Dave and I had talked about this in the last 2 weeks, that the First Nations peoples, when they have their powwows, the Iroquois Constitution is very similar to the Magna Carta. And they have their meetings in a very similar fashion, although they use different language for it. It's a very similar setup. So this is organically, this is the way people are drawn to protect what they feel is the most appropriate code of conduct for their society. Get together face to face, if it's in a barn or a teepee or a church or a bar or a chiropractic clinic, you get together and you look your neighbors in the eye and say, hey, there's this thing happening that I don't think that's cool. Let's try to correct that. And we have a number of people who were able to get us organized, and this is where we're at.
So yeah, with a lot of the newer members here inherited this paperwork from the founders of Ohio State Jural Assembly. We haven't been able to disprove it. We found it to be solid.
It's effective and thorough, and of course, like everything else we do, everyone's voice is represented. And if somebody comes along at any point, many somebodies come along and say, hey, there's this one thing, I don't think that's right. Cool, let's all talk about it and we'll change it.
Robert's rules.
Whatever's right for all of
May I
us.
Okay, so since we're talking about that, pursuit of happiness, wasn't that originally pursuit of real estate? Should we change it back to real estate?
No, real estate is a codes and statutes term. Property,
It's a property.
not real property, not real estate, property. My body is my property. My intellectual process is my property.
I've heard that.
That's a common law thing, and I think that that's something that we may visit
so
that.
yeah.
Original was life, liberty, and
Yeah.
pursuit of property, because they couldn't get any in
Right.
England.
Yeah.
So that's why they came to the New World. Then someone's just tricked them into life, liberty. Oh, let's just call it happiness and forget the property and
Well,
keep it for ourselves.
You may be onto something.
Pursuing happiness can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's my pursuit of happiness. I like to travel. That's my pursuit of happiness. A lot of people don't like to travel.
So the message here is that
Make it property and happiness.
this is not fixed. This
That's
is what the
that's
people
the
think
whole
it
point.
should be.
The whole point is, it's a flexible document that reflects what everyone in the assembly agrees collectively. This is the most effective umbrella terminology that can bring everybody together as opposed to dividing people.
So I always want to wrap up, as the founding fathers are in Pennsylvania and the birth of we don't want to say birth. A republic is born.
Republic, yes.
A republic is born
Right.
July 4th, 1776. We know how the whole thing goes. So if you go right down this middle of your page, fold it in half, I'm going to start with the word but. Because they say all this stuff and then they come in with this but right in the
However,
middle of the page. It's like, forget everything you said because
right,
we know all
because
this.
everything before the
We-
word but
we-
means
if
ignore
we-
all that.
If we've read the Declaration of Independence, so this but is part of the original one, but we're gonna kind of go into a little bit of what we say. This is to help you identify that place to be. Okay. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pushing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, now we're talking about the people, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the United States, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present federal government corporation is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct intent the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. We the people, therefore, in Ohio Jural Assembly, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of good people of these free and independent states in perpetual union, solemnly publish and declare that these United States are and of right free and independent states. They are absolved from all allegiance to the federal government corporation, including all federal powers to this republic circa 2020, and that all political connection between them and all foreign powers is and ought to be totally dissolved. That's pretty
That's
bold.
a good place to take
Yeah,
a
right,
breath.
right. And that as free and independent states in perpetual union, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliance, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which free and independent states in perpetual union reserve the right to do.
May I?
Yes.
In our common law studies, I don't know how many of you are on Dave's calls or have been following any of the various cases that we are trying to enact. One very important point that we make in our paperwork that we were listening to on the way down here is that the dead piece of paper, all caps corporation, is unable to be present and negotiate peace with the man or woman. It can't be done. And that's all we want, peace, honor. Restore us to that right place that our forefathers wanted us to be.
So you're saying that when we, the actual flesh and blood man or woman, show up, the United States of America Incorporated, that was formed in the bankruptcy of 1816, the bankruptcy of the United States of America, we all think is a lot, at least used to, that corporation can't interact with the man or woman we trumpet. That's what you're saying?
Williams versus United States, Justice Scalia said, right, when the de jure appears,
That's us.
the jurists, when the de jure appears, the de facto steps down.
They must step down.
This is a beautiful thing.
Shady, please stand up.
This is a beautiful, and we close the Declaration of Independence with, and support for this declaration with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other the protection of happiness, prosperity, life, and liberty, and property. I like property. And then, of course, we simply are making a notice here. There's no,
Autograph it.
we autograph it, we make sure we have the days correct. And this is a notice that you've made. We keep a copy, you have a copy. So here we have these two documents that get us started and say, this is where we want to be. Well, how do you get to some of these goals that are stated there? We need jurists to make the goal. And in there, we allude to, hey, if you just want to be a jurist in a jury pool, you don't have to be active so much.
Can I
Go ahead.
Can I connect the dots here?
Yes, yes.
So Joe and I each have cases in common law that we're trying to pursue a remedy. And it's been a long road, but we're at the point now where we are prepared to invite the other parties into a room, a court of claim, with a trial by jury of our peers. We need jurists. We're not saying we're the defendants or the plaintiffs and we're gonna have a jury trial under the codes and statutes. That's not, I'm not here for controversy. There was a wrong that was perpetrated. I asked you, if I have done anything to you, how may I remedy this? Tell me what you want. I'll do it. No response. They never respond. Okay, well, if you're not going to respond to my question, did I harm you in some way? Now, that said, you've harmed me, and this is what I require. And I would like us to go into a room with the magistrate, and the magistrates all know that all they can do is look at the facts of the case. My sworn affirmation, here is what happened.
Unbiased.
Unbiased. Here's what happened. And then the jurists decide, yeah, I think that was wrong, that you shouldn't have done that. And I think that what she's asking for as remedy is appropriate. And so the magistrate has no choice but to comply with what the jurists agree under common law. No harm, no trespass. That's it. 2 laws. Was there a harm? Was there a trespass? What is required? You have a question?
What is the proper definition of a juror of your peers?
That is an excellent question. So a jury of your peers, when they talk about that in the de facto and the codes and statutes, I don't know if you've ever sat on one of those juries, but there are specific explicit instructions given multiple times by the judge and the prosecutor that you are not permitted to consider anything but what's in their code book. Their code book doesn't say anything about harm or trespass anywhere.
Making all the rules.
It's 14 feet thick and it
Yes.
says nothing about harm or
That's
trespass.
So getting back to the heart of the independent grand jury, the heart of the common law, is not based on the oversight of a prosecuting attorney
That is
from the
correct. It's
corporation.
based on the oversight of.
And that's where the whole thing got completely off. And
That's
we're
right.
just taking that back.
We are trying to rebuild that. Jury of my peers would be
Right.
people who understand what are God's laws. What are the 2 laws that God has for us? Anyone?
Love the God, love the neighbor.
No harm, no trespass.
Am I correct to also assume that a jury of your peers are people that literally know you?
No. No, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't. In fact, there have been conversations. There have been conversations about where we might locate our room for our court of claim, and we have talked with Kathy about this at length, and we collectively, OSJA has concluded that it probably would be best for us to initiate these process in counties that have a heavy percentage of Amish and Mennonites, because they have a much clearer understanding of the difference between what is God's law and what are your codes and statutes. There's a separation there.
Richland County.
Okay. Sorry, Brett.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry, I
this
didn't mean to
is-
step on you.
no,
It's important to know, this is why we want to do this, because we have all had some sort of application on this. There's been some sort of, the de facto has done something ridiculous, like I was stopped at a stop sign and a cop pulled up next to me and said, hey, your seatbelt's on wrong, I'm going to give you a ticket. What? Who did I hurt? Who did I trespass against? We've all had some sort of application for that. Now, we're not saying revolution and, no, there's no Second Amendment involved here. It's just, hey, so your codes and statutes aren't working for me because I'm not an employee. I'm not a member of the military, which means I've signed myself off to be property of the government. I'm a woman. God created me and he gave me these rights, and you know what? I don't think I'm going to let you take them anymore.
So
That's a jury of my peers.
so
That would be my peers.
the Bill of Rights, right? The 10 article, right? They call them the 10 articles.
Don't quiz me, that's your thing.
They want the media today wants to put the Bill of Rights off it. Oh, this was this extra thing. No, it's everything, right? I mean, it really
It's
is.
the only thing.
And so when we talk about our Declaration of Independence, right? We know that we were born with inborn power. We were born with these rights. That First Amendment does protect 5 of those rights, 5 key rights. I'm going to bring this up because this is going to keep us going on what we're doing here today. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. We know that, right? Then the other 2, freedom to petition and freedom to assemble. Since we're free to assemble, all of us 17 men and women have assembled in this room right now because we are free to do that. We were born with the right. 18. Oh, that's right, Stephen. And okay, 18. So here we are assembled, here we are taking making a notice of Declaration of Independence, a notice here. We're now gonna be the jurists because we've taken an oath. And this one, we're gonna say, I swear, so help me God. We are gonna say an oath as we,
Swear or affirm, we're
Swear
not,
or-
we're not,
we use
we're
those
not
words.
pushing anyone's
Right.
spirituality on
Right,
anyone else,
we
whatever
use
your
those-
belief is,
we
there's a
use those words
creator.
here.
Okay,
So now, think of a seed planted. Think of the zygote, right? The sperm and egg hit and we have a zygote, right? Isn't it? I'm not a biology guy, he's nodding. So as we assemble, we need to as stated in here, we need to elect. And so we elect a moderator for our committee of safety. We elect a scribe and we elect a bailiff. These are Robert's Rules terms, Robert's Rules positions. The moderator runs meetings because the moderator was elected by people who base themselves in this. You see how this zygote's gonna grow now? You see the body that's gonna be created? And we have a scribe, and the scribe's gonna write everything down, read everything back at the next meeting, and we're gonna amend it or accept and vote, and the scribe's gonna make sure we document and record, and that bailiff's gonna be there.
to make sure the rules get followed.
Right, and for open meetings, the bailiff obviously has very little to do. Closed meetings, the bailiff needs to make sure that only those who are with us in here are in the meeting. There aren't any closed meetings in Ohio State General Assembly, but you can have a closed meeting if you get large
If the
enough.
committee of
if
safety
the-
decides
If
that's
that
appropriate.
committee of safety, but, so now you've grown here. You're gonna elect a treasurer, and you're gonna elect a public affairs or a ways and means, and you're gonna create offices. We're gonna create an office one day when we have many people, and we're gonna call this office the office of the sheriff. And we're gonna put men and women who start here. They get law enforcement because in their lives they probably dedicated it to law enforcement, and so they take that and their knowledge, and they can determine if a man or woman is eligible to be sheriff of the county,
Wonderful.
right? So this goes up slowly. I've kind of shot up from the zygote, and we're in elementary school here already with the sheriff. But this is the growth, and it's gonna take a while. It's not gonna happen overnight. But if we do it with God, with our given rights, if we let God come through us, and we elect among ourselves, we'll never use the word voting. We will never vote. We will never walk up and put a ballot in and walk away. We will be assembled. Those of us who have declared that our rights are unalienable, those of us who've taken an oath to be impartial, we are going to grow it this way. This is how it will work. And just as Scalia said, the de jure will appear. We're not doing it because we got this elected official in our sights and we're taking them out. That's not why we do it. We do it so we can show what the right way is to other men and women who don't have this knowledge. And this knowledge is starting to catch like wildfire. Common law, the Sestakea accounts. 10 years ago, you never heard anybody talking about this stuff. Now the collective conscious is growing. We're moving this way. And so there's this thing I've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years with OSJA, and it's the ability to remain private, and it's very important. And so I bring all this up to you today so you can see that OSJA is a private membership organization. And as long as we follow, go ahead, association, what did I say? Organization, association.
So this is actually an excellent time for me to point out that unbrainwashing yourself, relearning the language of common law as opposed to the language of the de facto, critical. It's critical. They trap you in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah, wow. No, I was just gonna say when we talk about jury of your peers, see, the first thing that came to mind is they change the language. It evolves continually.
Yep.
And you're bringing it back to that point. And we have to have the real language down and know what it is.
Right. And it's important in every interaction that you have with the privateers that you, when they say the wrong word, you clarify, oh, did you mean to say this?
Right.
Because I'm not an employee. I'm not under your employee rule book.
Right, very good, keep bringing that back.
You bring it back to them, and you have to be careful because, well, what was that, Forrest Gump? It's a box of chocolates. You
Yep.
just don't know what you're going to get.
Right,
You don't know how corrupt somebody may or may not be.
That's
You
right.
don't know what they may or may not have known before they started interacting with you, and you triggered some thoughts for them, and they're like, oh, I remember that training. I was warned about this. What do I do? What do I do? Just let them go or double down. Caution.
So,
Stuart had a question.
go ahead, Stuart.
So I invited some really powerful people I respect that, as they said, we can't affect who's gonna win Republican, but we can affect Central Committee. So the Delaware Republican National Committee, Central Committee members that happen to just be my friends.
Mhm.
We all grew up and they ended up there. So, one of the guys with the V, he was the ex-vice president of Tim Hortons for IT, smart guy. And I started talking about some of this stuff, and he said, "Oh yeah, you sound like one of those state citizens." And I said, "Well, no, we're really trying. I call this the eject button for evil tyrants, but we're not focusing on one guy." He said, "What's your end game?" He's like, "If I go spend 50 hours to learn all this stuff, how are you really gonna take? Oh, when you get to Jural and stand up, what's the end game? Do we have an answer to that question?"
Yes.
No, go
No,
ahead.
no,
No,
so
no, I don't.
I want you to,
I don't know the link, so go ahead.
no, I want you to share with the group the interaction that we had, the brief interaction we
Okay.
had with our county
So-
sheriff.
So this is what's gonna happen, right? You're gonna take the Jural covenant of office, you're gonna go home and say, "God, I really don't know what I signed, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do." It's okay, I felt the same way
For a long time.
for a long time. And so then as you assemble and meet and have regular meetings, perhaps weekly, bi-weekly, once every 2 weeks, once a month, you're gonna say, look at each other, say, we got some stuff, what do we do? What are we doing now? And so I'm here to say, you can do some small things that aren't pushy, they're more educational. Here's just one, I think we brought this up once, it's called a flag audit. So you can go into your local court rooms and you can say, I just wanted to measure the flag. I was just curious what size flag you guys had here.
And why does that matter, Ross?
So, I can't recall the Army Regulation Code, 6410-20. Right, go ahead.
Because the size of the flag is a clear way to define what type of court it is. Is this an admiralty court? Is this a military tribunal?
And so all I'm saying is, you don't walk in and measure the flag and say, hey, you're this, and you just start reading them the riot act. You just say, oh, you have this flag, okay, and you come back and, well, it had a gold fringe and tassels, and on the top was
And
an
the
eagle.
the eagles
And
were
you,
pointing
so
up.
you describe exactly what you say, you document it, and you record it, and you make sure, and you go through the courthouses in your county, and you just keep a record, and just know what they're saying non-verbally with their flag. You're a little wiser. You know what? You kind of get an idea what you're doing. I don't expect, go ahead.
And part of the reason that we do this, just like when Nathan was asking people, we were sending emails asking certain qualifications of our clerk of courts, what you're doing is you're notifying the de facto, hey, I know what your job is, and you work for me.
So
Do you know what your job is?
I don't want
And you don't confront them, just like, hey, I was just wondering, did you, can I have a copy of your oath of office? Oh, we don't know where that is. Huh?
So I don't want to,
Interesting.
I don't want to drill
And that
down
makes them
on
think.
this topic.
There are dozens of
So-
ways
so
you
the-
can do this.
Another thing you can do is what
Go ahead.
well, you can do a sheriff survey, and that's if you know your sheriff. And we even have some copies of the sheriff survey.
Do we? Did you bring them?
Yeah.
Okay.
right over
So
there.
we have copies of the sheriff survey that was written by Sheriff Mack in Arizona. The constitutional survey, just saying, hey, do you know these things about the Constitution? And the sheriff either replies or they don't.
This
But
is
we
best
didn't
done-
want to do that in Summit County because we felt it would be more cordial if we just show up and eyeball and shake hands, and it was they
So,
had a building opening, so
a
we went.
satellite for Summit County. There was a satellite in this little burg. and there was gonna be a ribbon cutting ceremony, and the sheriff was gonna help cut the ribbons.
Hot dogs, hamburgers,
And
you know,
I-
popcorn
but-
kids, the whole.
And I
you
said,
know.
all I wanna do is bounce off of her retina. That's all I wanna do. And I reached my goal, and that was great.
And we just wandered around and we picked up a little magnet and we talked to the guy, the forensics guy, and do you know what kind of skull this is? Oh, I think I'm not sure. Well, and I'm like, oh, well, the brown one I think it's a female. So you just have these conversations, like just an opportunity to make contact and make sure that these men and women know that we are also just men and women. And about 2/3 of the way through our little wander around this tiny parking lot, we realized, hey, these are all the families of the people who are employed here, and we're the only ones who are not. And they know it too. And
We
hey,
stuck out at the family reunion.
we stuck out. We're like, whose cousins are those? But it was, and as we're talking, we're like, it's kind of like, oh God, we didn't realize the bosses were going to
Yeah.
be here.
Because we are management. We're the management, they're the labor.
Yeah, so we just showed up to see what our building looks like.
This was a quiet, just shake hands
Shake
and
the
have like,
dominion back,
it-
that's right.
And in a polite and cordial way
Right.
that we made sure that they understand one-on-one from a psychological standpoint.
Right.
Hey, I totally will let you keep your job. Do you know what it is?
Well,
Are you
Oh,
in
no,
compliance
no,
with the
no, no.
Constitution?
Enjoy it,
We-
smile,
you-
smile.
it-
Hey, no,
again,
we were, there was no ill will at
Yeah, right.
all, and it was a very friendly thing. And now that we've done that, I feel comfortable sending her the sheriff's survey. Hey, you might not remember me.
Or look for another opportunity
How
to,
could you
to
not?
maybe have an introduction first. I want this to be organic for me, and I think it's a good idea that you look towards small things. Now you said, what can I do on email? What can we do with emails? Well, did you know that all elected officials are required to take a course on how to respond to records requests? Wait a
State
minute.
of Ohio, Dave
Wait a minute.
Yost.
What?
Dave Yost,
What?
Attorney
What?
General, requires every public
So
official
he
to
calls
take a
it
3-hour course.
The Sunshine Law. And the Sunshine Law requires everyone to take a 3-hour course, and you can do it online or whatever. And
Wait, so that they know how to respond in a transparent fashion to everyone out here who says, hey, I have this question about fill in the blank.
Oh.
Because you're supposed to know how to respond to that. And we found that most people in those
Uh.
buildings didn't know how to.
Uh.
So
something a new Committee of Safety can do is check the records of record request training of your elected official.
you
It
can-
sounds a little circular
you
as I
can go
say
to
it.
Dave Yost's website and you can look at all the officials who have taken the training. Go ahead.
I yield.
No, shit, behind you?
I'm sorry.
Like the birth certificate, knowing the difference between alive and.
The long form and the short form, right.
Fetus.
Trust me, I was born in Washington State and I have had many heated arguments. These people get very angry. No, it's the long form. It's the one that has the,
It's got the details.
it's got the number on the back. That's the one. No, there is no such thing. Okay,
So-
okay.
You know,
All right.
what other thing, school board meetings, right? We can get into a long conversation about topics they need to hear, education that the folks in the audience need to hear, based on some of these ideas. You could go to your county meeting, you can go to your city, your little township meetings, the village meetings, they have council meetings. Up here, bounce off their retina. Learn what they're doing. Learn how the de facto runs. You're gonna know in your gut that this stuff is wrong. And we actually had a member, Keith from Summit County with Joe and I. Keith was on city council. And he took that oath and he sat on council the first day and he said, I do not belong here. And he let his 2-year term run out and he had no desire to rerun. And I was in there once with Keith. And of course, they're doing something about barking dogs and they increased the fine. And he looks around to all these guys. They finally get to him because they kept him on the end. And he's like, guys, come on. It's a dog. You know, he brought it down to earth with them. You're not going to see that you're not going to have any human, any man or woman be a man or a woman. They're going to act in this corporate stance.
Right, because they feel like I hold an office, I'm above you. No, you are a public servant. You work for me.
So you may wanna get into a health side too. Now here, Ohio, the ORC, they have this web set up where you have a health commissioner. You have a health commissioner up here, and this is appointed by a board. And the board is appointed by 30 elected people across the county, depending on the population of your county. So the mayor in this township and the councilman in this township, they had 2 votes to bring in the board. And
But
this
it's
guy
more,
over here.
it's more of an electoral college,
It-
like it's a random, we're
And
not gonna
so-
tell you who they are.
And so when the health commissioner of a county says, hey, everybody's gotta cut up garlics and eat them every morning, because I decided that's healthy, well, you're certainly not gonna get a good morning kiss, but that's not the issue here. The issue is they have no right to tell you what you have to put in your body, what's required. These health commissioners were out of control a few years ago, and I agree they still are out of control. And you ask yourself, who put this man or woman in this position?
And why do we give them any power or respect?
Right,
that
and
it's
Well,
not
so
allowed?
we,
Because they have more guns than we do, and they're looking for an excuse to
all
use
right.
them.
Well, the point is that we had, this happened simultaneously in 2 counties in Ohio, Tuscarawas,
Easy for you to say.
easy for me to say, and Claremont. They both got into the meat of the ORC and both figured out and identified those 30 or 35 men and women who did the initial votes. And so now they both, Tusk kind of didn't have, they weren't motivated for that particular approach, and they looked at something else, but they brought something to the table. They brought a knowledge to us. Yet Claremont has men and women who are harmed, who are willing to be witnesses in a common law. And they're at a point where they've done a notice campaign to all of these men and women. In fact, Michael might have been at a signing party for that.
I think Michael, who usually comes, is not here because
Michael
he's at,
Taylor?
yeah, Michael Taylor's
yeah.
at a signing party
It's
tonight
so,
on that.
in Claremont, this is a group that really wasn't working out of OSJA meetings, but they were led by a papered member of OSJA. And this papered member recently called and said, I need I need to know how to get this court thing done. And we're like, ta-da! We have been researching this. We
Yay.
eat, sleep, and drink what works and what doesn't work. And it's a lot of what doesn't work to figure out maybe something's gonna work. And so to direct them as to how to make their claim against these men and women who've been voted into office and who have caused a trespass because they elected a board that elected a health commissioner.
They did a
Right.
trespass that
Yeah,
caused a harm.
They did a trespass
Did a
that
trespass that
caused harm.
So you go after all,
All of
30
them.
and them?
All
and
of them,
again?
because here's
Well,
how
the
this
ones who've
works.
taken the
The
oath,
ones who have taken the oath, the ones who have who have the ability and responsibility, and at any point had the opportunity to say, hey, no, you guys, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this. And you didn't do it, you had an obligation to say, this is wrong. In the health context, hey, Tusk in particular, you keep pushing that button to add this chemical to our water, you're poisoning us. You could not do that. You could say, no, I'm not doing that. We'll all get fired. Okay. Or we can press our claim against you because you're intentionally harming us. Pick
so,
one. It's okay.
so go ahead.
Well, just back to end game, like, doesn't sound like we have an end game, and that was his entire point to really trump card this whole thing. We have some nice places to start. Definitely, I want to start small like that.
Right.
And maybe we can pick one topic. I think it's been discussed. Let's go after the fluoride in our water, just to
right.
practice the process.
So end game is figure out who the person in your local, we'll use the de facto term jurisdiction, figure out in your county, who is that one person who keeps putting the button, who's hitting the button, and you notify that person, you put them on notice, hey, the first notice is, okay, I'm not sure if you realize that what you're doing is a problem for me, but what you're doing is a problem for me. So if you could, if you can talk to me about it, and then they ignore you, and then the second notice is, hey, this is a problem, we're gonna have to have a remedy, and it goes on from there.
All right. So initially, you need to understand what their rules are. If they were to test the water, say, did you test the water in this way? Can I see the results of your test? And then you may want to test the water to see if the results match up and test in the same way. You need to start generating your own evidence. Do not go on the website, do not go on the internet and pull down evidence and say, I know all about your water because I got it online. You'll end up in federal jail. We know a woman who did this. We don't know her, but we know of a woman who did this.
Dave knows her.
Yeah, well.
Dave knows her, and we have people who have tried to help her at, what is her name? Darius Moody.
So
you have to be very careful
each
that
step
you
of the way.
establish yourself independent of everyone else. You go find your own information. You have that contact with that person eye to eye. Hey, I'm a woman or man. You are a woman or man. Did you know that what you're doing here, this specific thing, is harming me?
Okay, so this is the notice part, right?
It's
First,
but
like-
the end game is either they recognize, I'm not letting go of this, you should stop what you're doing.
And-
Or we take them into a court of claim and we have a jury of our peers, and the peers say, yeah, you intentionally harmed the whole group of people, so this person who's here, we're going to award them. And then you have some public official who at some point has $100 million law, suit, that they owe money to people for harming them. At some point in the not too distant future, I feel there's going to be, these cases are going to be coming to fruition. And our goal is not to start a revolution, it's to say, hey, you're a man or a woman, and so am I. You're not above me, I'm not above you, but what you're doing is wrong, and you're doing it on purpose because you think you can.
I think we can all agree that Fauci has harmed everyone in the country. So why don't we start with him, or do we have to only stay in our Franklin County?
So there
let
are,
the military do
listen,
that.
that Ross's opinion is let the military. My opinion is,
There's the word war
Stuart,
on my sheet back here. It
Stuart,
says war.
yes, Stuart, this is my personal opinion response to you. You have Dave Roberts' phone number, right? I'll give it to you. If you want to pursue Fauci, if you, the person, the man, want to, sorry, don't use the word person. If you, the man, want to pursue Fauci, the man, Dave and I will work with you to get the paperwork done. But it has to be something that you understand. You are going to stand in that. You have to know the common law. Fauci, you harmed me. And on behalf of all the other people that you intentionally harmed, I am standing here to press this claim against you.
A harm against one is a harm against all.
And that's what common law, that's
So-
what we're about.
So these ideas are, again, back to the water,
Sorry.
because you said the water was a good idea. I say, whatever you choose, just ask yourself these three things. What are their rules? What is their job? What is their language? And you may want to find out what was the congressional intent of those three, right? What's the legal definition of their glossary terms they use? What's the congressional intent for the job? What's the tenor of the job?
Okay.
Well, here's what the Lord's showing me, and I don't know if you saw me on TikTok with 10 million views. I stood up in a courthouse. I didn't know it was being recorded. They were talking about surgeries for young girls, turning them into boys to girls, vice versa. It was just horrific, and I stood up and said some things about being demon possessed. Basically, the Lord shows me that our whole government is full of demon possessed people making laws that affect we Christians, and we are given the trust from God directly. We don't have to put up with this. So what's the litmus test? They can't say the phrase Jesus Christ is come in the flesh unless the Holy Spirit in them allows them to do that. If they don't have the Holy Spirit in them, they have demon possession. They can't see that. I don't think they should be allowed back in the State House buildings. I'm sure they think they should. So how do we, with this separation of church and state conversation that's out there, you say no, it's gone too far. You're going after pre-pedophiling these children with tranny dances and baby story time
Right,
in
it's
your
harm.
Bibles.
It's harm.
It's harm.
It's harming our
It's
whole
harm.
society.
So yeah, you need to have, unfortunately, a proof of the harm. And then you can begin a case. Technically, all these things we talk about, whether it's measuring the flag or testing the water, every step of the way, you're building a case. You're in the habit of making documentations, right? Making sure you document, keeping a record of all these documents, being able to access it, even if it's just the oaths of office of your school board. or the oaths of office of all elected people in the county, like they did over in Lorraine. They have all of the oaths. They go, okay, we got all the oaths. What do we do now? I said, okay, what do you guys want to do now? No, what do we do with these? I'm like,
Yeah, what do you
And-
want to do?
and-
What, you
we-
gather this information so that at some point you could say, okay, this thing that you're doing needs to stop. And I am here to tell you that you took this oath requiring you to not harm me. And that thing that you're doing harms me. So are you going to comply with your oath, or are we gonna take this to a court of claim?
So
so
what if they're harming children? Can I stand up for the children that can't stand up for themselves? Or does it have to be, I have to be harmed?
who has control over them? That is it somebody in the established de facto government that has control over them? If there's a yes, you have to work at that person, whether it's Dave Yost or somebody else. If you'd have no success with that, we defer to the military. Provosts, go ahead with
Okay.
your answer.
So I think the question was slightly different, and correct me if I'm wrong. So I, the woman, Christina, am sick to my stomach and beside myself. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't focus on my daily tasks, I can't pay attention to my family members because I'm so distraught that there are people out there, and I'm saying it, intentionally mutilating children. These are children who should be in my office. Their families should be sitting in my office. We should be having this conversation, me and my 4 psychology degrees and you and your family. What in the F are you doing? And instead, they found surgeons and long list of people who are, oh, we're going to affirm this.
The adolescent
That,
counselors
okay,
are
so what,
feeder
so
system
listen,
from the
so
high
what
school.
I'm saying from my perspective, my response is, that is a harm to me. My life is being harmed. The things that I need to do for my life, for my sustenance, for my existence to continue in a pursuit of happiness fashion has been put on hold because I see that children are being intentionally mutilated because their parents would rather have their 10 seconds of glory and fame and attention than do the hard work and sit in an office and talk to your kids and own yourself for however many years it's going to take. It's easier to shift our societal norms than it is for a parent to go, yeah, no, you're not a boy.
So we're seeing the result of parents who suffer from mental illness, aren't we? And so this is where we get to the meat. If we can meet in groups and talk about this, if we can meet in groups and say, hey, is there a way we can get a litmus test going? And just discuss this amongst yourselves. And like you say, oh, Fauci, I say bring it back to Franklin County. Find somebody close to you in Franklin
Yeah, go
County.
after Les Wexman.
Listen,
He's already out of the country.
face-to-face conversations, that's the first step. Hey, did you know that what you're doing is hurting me? It's harmful to me.
So that's
It's
the
a
notice.
trespass. It's a trespass. What you're doing, you're choosing to do something that is harming me, and I know I'm not alone.
So we're gonna have to stand up, each of us.
You,
and do
each
something.
person, each man and woman has to stand up. And that's the hard part because we have been indoctrinated into this system of apathy. Somebody else will take care of it.
So because we want to be jurists here, and we want to be impartial, but you have to be knowledge. You have to have knowledge.
You have to have a foundation of understanding, and it's
what's
not
going on.
super complicated. That's the thing that the system has trained people to, oh, it's too complicated. Oh, that's legal. There's a mountain of books and you have to know the codes and statutes and the legal terms. Blah, 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 blah. No, common law. What are the 2 things that you can and can't do? No harm, no trespass. Super simple. You know in here when it's a harm or a trespass.
That's a real basic thing, and then it comes all the way down to love your neighbor as yourself.
Exactly.
All right?
Exactly.
And that's the law and the prophets all the way.
Exactly.
There-
You had a
that's the whole
question?
thing.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, so my question is, why would I, or why would I not want to rescind my voter's registration?
So that's a deep dive for another time. I haven't rescinded anything. I also haven't renewed or
Oh,
updated
so-
anything in
Let me ask you a
a
question.
century.
I think it's a contract that I,
That's correct, and
Fine,
there's
I
a
don't
list
so-
of contracts that you need to rescind when,
Right.
if you decide to start doing that, it becomes a situation, and I'm gonna quote Gary right now, he's our Chief Justice. When you start this process, you better know how you're going to function fully in the private. How are you gonna function? You're not gonna be able to go and use your credit card anywhere. You're not gonna have credit cards. You find somebody else to provide gas for your vehicle. Are you prepared to drive down the road with no license plates and because they'll target you?
But-
And if you don't know how to stand your ground, there's a list.
So that there is a growth part. First of all, I want to just confirm, do you see the Board of Elections as a criminal enterprise?
yeah.
Me too. All
Okay.
right. So we're
right.
on the same page, right? You do not want to
I see I
participate.
see a selection, not an election.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
That's correct.
It's almost as though
I
it's
mean, that was pretty obvious.
it's like hypnotizing you. Go once or 4 times a year, cast your vote, and then you'll be in control. And you step back. And we come here today and say, show up every week, ask them questions, know where God stands in every cell of your body, and make it happen slowly. Bite into the fruit of patience.
God will show
do
you
what you
what
gotta
you need
do.
to do and what you need to ask, who you need to interact with.
Right.
We're
So-
what, 2 years, more than 2 years in, and again, I'm using this word again, it's organic. The task appears before you.
What
Now-
about the affidavit of repudiation?
No, no,
I got a lot of
you
good
brought that
questions.
up.
No, so
Repudiation.
again, we
Getting
have
the
we
passport
have people
person.
who are working through that process. I personally subscribe to the idea that I know who I am. I know where I stand, and I know that if a privateer challenges me, I can say to that individual, man or woman, I am not under any contract to anyone.
So,
Or identify yourself. We can role play. Identify yourself.
And-
You need to know my name? It's Miranda.
let-
Where's your warrant?
I want to address the question here, maybe from a different aspect. Okay, you have, now, if you have one contract out there, you've got about 200, 300, 500 contract. Every canceled credit card, every closed bank account,
Every
those
check you ever
contracts
wrote is a
remain
contract.
remain there. I'm going to ask you this, and I know the answer. Do you want to spend the rest of your life trying to cancel all those contracts and making sure you got every one? Nobody wants to do that.
So what you're
So-
telling me is if you start with one, you have to do every
It-
single one?
I bring this up because I have a positive at the end of this dialogue. There is an option to have an agent do all of that on your behalf, and this is why that school of thought has
Wow.
teeth, is
Wow.
because the agent is licensed, and the agent, as licensed in their Cartoon Land system, pulls you out of that system because they are licensed. You can really not pull yourself out of this system as easily as you think you might be able to do. And to make the commitment and to invest something up front, I am not here to sell anything today, but there is an opening. There are up to 8 more men and women in Ohio country. We're trying to get a group of 10 to go through this. And these men and women, and I speak for myself, must commit, must walk that walk. I'm up here talking the talk, but I'm here to tell you all, I'm prepared to find out where it is Stephen lives and where that picture is on the internet of that place in Vinton County. I want to grow 2,000 acres of hemp over there. I want to get a tractor. I want to live in the private. I just want goats for my milk and cheese and butter. I want
Chickens. We
chicken
decided
for
on the
my
chickens
eggs.
already.
I want to get into that. And yet I've lived in suburbs and urban areas my whole life, and I know darn well I can't do that next month. But everything I do right now, I prepare for that. And I've made a commitment, and I am 2 of 10 people so far, and we are looking for more, because I don't wanna spend the rest of my life canceling all these contracts and trying to deal with these. They're slick, they are really slick, and I'm telling you, you gotta learn about your government just to get them to change their minds. Just think of all these banks and fiduciaries and all of this and that, insurance company, they all have their own sets of rules. I say, use the school of thought for a third party. Reach out to me if you're, again, I'm not here to sell anything tonight, but I am here to answer your question, to say there is another way. And you better be ready if you go there.
What kind of agent is this you're talking about? IRS agent,
No.
anti-IRS?
Kind of
Freedom law
military,
agent?
is
What,
it?
what are they called?
form, is,
What,
how's he legal?
Is it costly?
That's subjective.
Yeah.
Again, with 10 people, it's not so costly,
Yeah.
because if you tell an agent you want a contract with that agent to do 10 people at once,
Oh.
then that agent can go to Bank of America and see all and get 7 of them done, and they can go to National City, and so it's things like this. Yeah, there's price tags involved, and so how, you're asking licensed and what, who's the agent? Have you met him? Did you shake him? What do his kids look like? Are their
No,
teeth
what's the
straight?
title of this kind of agent? Like an enrolled agent has a backdoor to the IRS, and he's supposed to be
Oh,
on your side.
okay, so, at
Non-disclosure
your
agreement.
level, I don't
Non-disclosure
know the
agreement.
answer.
Non-disclosure.
What? I don't know,
Non-disclosure.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement, and there's no disclosure yet for me to non-disclose. So I'm at the infancy of this school of thought,
Okay.
and I bring this up to increase the consciousness in the room, and know that you don't have to do it yourself. If you wanna opt in on the school of thought where a licensed agent does it on your behalf, I'm here to
Isn't
say,
licensing bad?
all I'm here to say is if the remaining 8 people all come from Timbuktu or California, if they all come from some state out of here, I'm doing this so I can tell the people of Ohio it works, because I don't know it's gonna work until I do it. So I'm here to talk and let you know I'm gonna walk the walk, and if I get down the street, you're all gonna hear about it. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on, just yield 1 second. I want her to comment real quick. Go ahead.
So I've listened to a lot of Out of
Thanks,
Babylon,
Lisa.
you know, David Straight, Bobby Lawrence, those kind of people. Elise, I think I just went to a seminar that she had. You're familiar with her?
There are a lot of top-down organizations out there. We are not
Well,
top-down.
no, you said Felicia
ahead.
Beverly?
No, she said
Elise.
Elise.
Oh,
That was the one Michael went.
that one,
She lives
okay.
Yeah.
in Westerville.
Yep. Go ahead.
So, how are, I mean.
How are we different?
Yeah,
So, all those organizations that you cited are top-down organizations. They have a national structure, and they go national, and then you have your state, and then you go down to your counties, and then the people, men and women, are at the bottom. And when you walk in, and we had this happen in one of our counties up near Cleveland, so I observed what happens. They say, okay, so now did everybody fill out their paperwork? This one's $37, give me your $37. Now we'll record this in our records, and we'll hold this with the state, and the state will then send it to the national, and then you'll be states national or whatever. That's top down. The counties have control. The counties have decision-making power. In OSJA, the only reason anybody on the state level exists is because we're trying to make sure that we get 2/3 of our counties spun up so that we can dissolve. If I do my job right, I won't be necessary. I will go away, and I'll just get to go back to Summit County, and we can just worry about what's happening in Summit County and know that all the counties around us, if they need our help, if they want to consult with us, whatever, we're all locking elbows. We are not ever going to be a top-down organization, ever. It is each man and woman's responsibility
Good.
So
to self-govern, and it has to start at the county level.
Good.
succinctly, we're saying, everybody else wants you to change your overlord. Keep your title,
yeah.
change your overlord.
I mean, I see
We are
I
no
see-
titles.
Yeah.
We're men and women, that's it. If you're,
That's why I'm here, because Michael has been talking to me about that whole state national. I mean, I haven't become a state national. I've gone to the meetings. I've listened to a lot on YouTube or Rumble or whatever,
Sure.
but I'm still trying to figure out what I feel a piece about.
Right, right. So, that's a great
Alright.
phrase.
So,
Don't trade your overlords. Be your own overlord,
Yeah.
I
like the
wanna,
way God designed
I
it.
do wanna wrap up this new business
Go ahead.
topic pretty soon, so
Sure, go ahead.
final comments and questions.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. I get one piece every time I come. I'm gonna leave this safe world of being in the Matrix, and I want to take the red pill. But then I'm gonna be outside in the Nebuchadnezzar floating around in this crazy land. I don't even know how to drive the Nebuchadnezzar. So I need like aftercare. I need to know what the aftercare looks like before I go there. Definitely need role play on how to talk to cops when I drive around with no license. There's a lot of organizational structure and that needs to be done. For here's where you are now. You're gonna take the red pill. This is what your life will look like. This is how you're gonna live. This is what you need to practice when you get pulled over, or you will go to jail. And like, you know.
Oh,
it's like-
listen, no, I'm gonna jump in on that one.
Quickly.
Even if you do it that way, you still might go to jail.
And so we're gonna have Ryan go next, but I wanna respond to you and say this, because you and I, we're in this for one reason. To save the children, they can't do it without us. Do you think if you go through all that you're gonna have an effect, and you are gonna save some children? This trafficking business and all that, you're gonna create some ripples for those children, because whatever I can do, as soon as I said to God, I wanna save those children, OSJA opened up for me, and I got a path to do this, and it all boils down to that. And so, as we were taught by the teacher on the cross, that the suffering is there, and you did, it's right? I'm not saying we gotta suffer through it.
Get your free tickets to Jim Caviezel's movie. You gotta get them now so it shows up in the theater. He's outing all the human traffickers.
Well,
You
good.
know, it's called, I forget what it's called, it's on Facebook.
I saw
Freedom.
so again, this
Jim
is about
Caviezel's
the
movie
children.
Freedom.
Ryan,
Okay, Brian.
complete your comment.
Yeah, and also in response to what Stu was sharing, the complexity of all these matters, doesn't really have to be that complex, but I want to ask specifically how this relates to the oath that we take and being a juror or being on the Jural assembly. What I'm understanding so far is that it's a responsibility to be able to rule rightly according to the law. And so there may be enough, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that seems to be the main responsibility, where these other matters are almost personal matters that you can be led to pursue if you so choose. But being on the assembly, you are committing to rule rightly on lawful matters with other jurors. Is
So-
that
That's
correct?
correct.
Right, but the one point, again, this is an opt-out point, it's right here. It says, if I'm called, right, restraint.
If you're called, and we need a pool. For example, Go ahead.
Right, this is the covenant. If appointed or elected to any office serving the people, such calling, I will faithfully serve this office, I'll, uphold, support. Again, if you're called to be on a jury and you accept the request to be on a jury, then you swear to be unbiased.
For this group, not the public courts.
Correct.
Right, this is the Jural covenant of office. I swear, if you ask me to be on a jury and I accept your request for me to buy, it's not like, oh no, you gave the oath, you're on this jury now, Ryan. It's never like that.
It's not like the de
It's never
facto
like
were they
that.
say, oh, we're gonna find you a contempt.
Oh yeah, that
or-
one, right?
Yeah, right? Oh,
Right,
you
you
have.
better call in.
You better call in, you better have your boss write a note.
So everybody,
And the boss.
for the sake of time, final questions before we shut this down. Final questions?
Anyone else?
Because I want to respect everybody's time. I want to thank Doc for giving us the space. I want to respect his time. I'm sure his day, as most men and women in this room, have been a long day. So we are in new business right now. We've been conducting a committee of safety meeting. This hasn't been fully Robert's rules because there's no scribe writing down what we're doing. So,
May I?
yes.
I'm pretty sure that Kathy has stated several times in the past that the manner in which the scribe enacts their position in this building is electronically. Right, Kathy? Okay, so
Okay.
lay out first.
So this is, again,
Video.
Franklin
Right.
County gets to decide what's good for Franklin County. Licking gets to decide for, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to help you develop these ideas based on these solid things. So with that, in our new business today, we told you about a private membership organization known as Ohio State Jural Assembly. We tried to show you what private was all about. We showed you the 3 building blocks here, except the Jural Covenant of Office. So what I want to do is shut down this, close this meeting appropriately, and have those men and women who want to be sworn in come on up here. So first of all, can I get a motion?
I moved to close. Adjourn.
Second.
Closing new business first and.
Yeah, I moved to close new business, yeah.
I'm not second.
Okay,
Now I moved to adjourn.
Second.
Kathy,
This
thank you.
meeting is adjourned until July 6th, 2023. Doc's kind enough to let us back here, 7 o'clock. I've been invited, you're all invited, tell a friend, we're gonna keep talking about this stuff.
you're all invited.
And, oh yeah, and you're all invited too. We are in Reynoldsburg and Reichert Family Chiropractic. Again, millions of thanks to Doc. Tam, thank you very much for your hospitality and letting us speak. And men and women, go with God, and we'll see you soon. This meeting's
One
adjourned.
thing I forgot to mention was,
Okay.
Ross and Christina give of their time graciously and then come from a bit of a distance. So if anybody wants to give them any love, there's a little bucket back here that we can do that in.
Oh,
Do
what?
Like a Cash App or PayPal or something like that, or?
That would be fine too.
Where's the stop button?
I
Okay,
don't
so
know, it's
live.
your device.
Hey, folks. Glad you could watch me figure out how to shut her down. So that's what I'm doing. Shut.
Thanks, guys.
Save, share, mute, mic. No, it's
No?
fine. There's got X. Maybe the X. Are you sure you want to stop streaming?
Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
You're such a goofball.